Hi, everyone. Welcome to FinFactor. I'm your host, Blaine Bertsch, co-founder and CEO at DryRun, where we will help you forecast your cash flow, model scenarios, figure out where your business is headed into the future, and make sure you're making the best decisions for your business. And I'm really excited. Joining me today is Amanda and Mallemes from Mallemes Consulting. And we've been talking before the show. We've got a great topic that we're going to dive into today. Thanks for joining me, Amanda.
Thank you so much for having me, Blaine. I'm really excited to be here.
And so one of the things we were talking about, I know like you're a fractional CFO. That's what Mallmes Consulting does today. But we kind of wanted to dig into that from a couple of perspectives. One of if you're like a finance pro, a CPA, a CFO, and you want to dive into offering that type of service, some of the ways you can do that, some of the earmarks that you have to work around, but also if you're a business looking to engage a fractional CFO, and we'll talk about a lot of the benefits, but also some of the best practices for doing that. So to kick it off, I just would love to hear how you sort of started off and got into this role as a fractional CFO.
Yeah, absolutely. So I never wanted to be an accountant. And I never really wanted to play with the numbers. But I did understand that you had to understand the numbers to understand money and business. And so I was very lucky. I went to school to get my accounting degree and designation while working at a data integration company. And it blew my mind that it was like, oh, wait, this is just another organization system. And really understanding how organizing it would impact the business. And the difference between what your accountant is seeing for taxes versus what the business needs to understand. And I, for the longest time, because I guess I just got it, I couldn't understand why there was that disconnect. But really understanding that that's what the business owners needed. Nobody really wants bookkeeping or tax services. You have to. What they really want is an understanding on how to work with their business or make it run better.
Yeah, we see this. We talk with businesses and
Yeah.
finance pros every day, and of course, this comes up virtually every day that there is insight you can get from historicals, of course, but it is limited, and unfortunately, a lot of businesses I think are they're given a lot of this information, and they have no access to the really useful information that is actually going to that is going to guide them forward to make decisions of what's going to happen this year. So how did you make that transition then to where you are now? I know you probably went through a number of steps. How did you get to this point?
So first, I mean, I was really fortunate. The company that I worked at was really open to, you see a problem, great, you're the solutioner. And so while I was there, I'd worked my way up from, I think it was an office administrator or manager as my first. And then kind of as the company grew and I saw what needed to be done, I just kind of worked through it. So moved myself up to an accounting, manager and then uh, I think it was an accounting department manager and then a financial reporting manager. And really what all of that meant was I was looking at the data that we would get within our accounting system. And as the accountant trying to bill out the hours in our hour sister from our consulting, things just didn't match. And because it involved the money, they had kind of put it in my department. And people tell me I'm smart. I'm not. I'm really lazy. So I like to do one thing once, figure it out, and like I'll spend a couple of days doing it, make crazy notes, and then promptly forget about it and go and use that. Whatever I had done before as kind of my process. And so in doing that, what I was doing was I was adding system and process throughout the organization, and putting accountability for projects back into sales or the project manager or the resourcing team. And the organization benefited. But the way that I saw it was me and my team didn't have to get yelled at or have to chase a bunch of the stuff that we had no control over anyways. And so doing it in a way that, we would get the hours properly for either the different clients or an understanding of where the people were spending their hours, on training or that kind of thing to kind of help the company see where the new technology was going,
Mhm.
because where people are spending their time is kind of what's interesting and what's going to move forward. And so in that way, the organization had definitely benefited, and it got to create a bunch of efficiencies. We saw a month over month increase in net profit. as well as maintaining the same employee or contractor levels, but actually getting more out of it. And so that was where my light bulb kind of went off. And I, again, am the laziest person, so I don't want to have to put a lot of effort into getting action. And I am very much, taking from the IT world of, I'm going to try and see whether it works and then I can go back and fix it. So just being open to trying a bunch of different things, because what I saw in the data, I knew what the impact was. And so it was trying to find a way to communicate in a way that the business understood, because they were really good at what they did. And I definitely couldn't do that. But if I wanted them to understand or to change, I had to explain to them why it was important instead of just leaving it with them to understand my language. And a huge part of that was not going to school until I'd already been in industry for a number of years, realizing it's a completely different language, and like words matter and they mean different things. So just trying to take that away so that when you're talking to the business, you can talk about what matters, because the business owners really do know, right? Like the people in the seats, they know what they need. If you're talking to somebody that needs data, they may not know what they need, but they know what they need it for. And so really just acting as that translator to enable them to get the data that they needed to then turn it into information. Because as you said, like they get all of this stuff and they're like, but so what? So if I could organize it and kind of present it, I like to say in a choose your own adventure kind of way, like if you do this, that'll happen and this will happen. It takes all of the uncertainty out for the business owner. And that's really what they want us for, right? They bring their expertise and we bring ours, and together we can partner.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and like, of course, we're speaking the same language. We literally build dry run to do what ifs like this.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
That's what so much was about, right? And but like the things you brought up there. First of all, that was all extremely smart, and it's amazing. You call it lazy, but it's amazing where smart people are. They get lazy in areas that they know is not a priority or shouldn't be done this way, because you saw the value of the data, like you said, getting it to information, getting it to insights the business owners can use, and doing really labor intensive grunt work to get there when you don't have to makes no sense. It leads a business of efficiency. It gets the data to them likely way too late to be useful. And so that, and proof is in the pudding, like the increase in profit and increase in efficiency, everything is that can have a massive impact. And this actually comes back to, like, we see this all the time. We see too many businesses that are relying on basically their own gut and hoping that they'll get some insight from their tax accountant on the future. And they're not. And they're missing those big movers in their business, those types of things that can truly move the needle in their business. And today, they can get a benefit without having to bring in incredibly expensive full-time CFO into a business that is likely in that space where it doesn't make sense for them. But they can benefit from having that kind of expertise, right?
Absolutely. But even further to that, every CFO is not the same, right? So we all I come up with a very different background than anybody else, just with our life experiences and the work that we have. And so it's not even just the fractional CFOs or the movers and the shakers. It's more of giving the opportunity so that everybody is there. And another big reason that I actually decided that, you know what, I'm not going to just go into a sitting CFO full-time operational position, was the lack of support I felt when I was actually in that position. So yes, I can know about what ifs and I can do the scenarios and all the rest of that, but it's really lonely at the top. And so, a lot of finance professionals either don't have support groups at all, is not great. We're right behind dentists in our suicide rates for that reason. But further to that, anytime I would actually go and try and talk to somebody, you have to think about it. Those typically that you can have the conversation with and would understand the complexities of the situation, they can't know all the details because they're outside of your organization. And those that can know the details, it would within your organization, it typically would lead you to a CEO or a COO. And very rarely do they have the ability to have the understanding. And so when I would have these really great decisions and or conversations, we'd be coming up with a new revenue model or a new line of business, you go to have that sounding board, and often you don't get a true sounding board from somebody with the knowledge because they don't know the details. But your CEO or your COO will look at you and be like, well, I don't know, that's your department. And it's like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm either really brilliant here or I'm out to lunch, right? And so that unknown adds that added pressure that I really felt if I could provide support for people already in those roles and they can just, yeah, okay, I'm doing the right thing, because they spend so much time in the weeds that zooming in and zooming out, right? Zooming out to the strategy and then zooming back in for that application. Sometimes you just need somebody to chat you through and to bounce ideas off of, as I'm sure you do when you're running your clients through dry run and stuff like that, right? And to not have that is just, it's like, it almost feels like you've lost an arm or something, right?
So you were with this organization. Obviously, you learned a ton from that, and it's amazing how much of what you learned from that is people dynamics, right? That to make this information worthwhile, it can't just be data. It can't just be information. You have to actually get buy-in. You have to get understanding, and that's such a massive challenge. And it's amazing that a lot of people don't recognize that for the longest time, but you recognize that, which means you're able to deliver that value, right? So how did you take that next step in engaging people and getting them on board and getting that unified view forward?
For sure. I mean, regardless of the situation that I'm in, I like to go in and just start with conversations and get a lay of the land, right? I think you hear the saying, every story or every story has three sides, and it's not necessarily wrong, right? There's actually more to that, and it's, you can have the exact same event, and because of your background and your ethos and your knowledge and your experiences, you can experience it different. And so it is true to you in that way. And I'm a naturally curious person. And so when I go into an environment, I like asking questions as to, what's going on and what do you think your pain points are? What do you think is working? What's not? What would you like it to see it look like? And I think historically, when you ask those questions, people go like, well, I'm here and I want to be here and I don't know how to do that. And the beauty is that I know how to do that. So in partnering, we can do that. But it's more than that, in that I don't think we actually have to view it as a patching to get from one to the other. And so with a lot of clients, just chatting through, regardless of what level we're working on, getting an understanding of why we're doing what we're doing. Right. So if you have like, color this box orange. Okay. But why? Why are we doing that? And part of that started with, being in my early 20s. I faked it until I made it. Right. So like, okay, sure. But tell me why you're doing it, because then I knew why we were doing it. But also then I'd start asking the questions, but why are we doing it that way? Why does it need to be orange? Does it need to be orange at this step? And that was because that was how I learned. But through having those conversations and in asking people, I found that was a really great way to make connections with people, and they would share the story. And so if they're telling you why they're doing it and what they're getting out of it, and you're involving them in the process, it's a lot easier to get them to help you to build the new process, because it's going to benefit them, right? So getting an understanding of why we're doing what we're doing, where we want to go, and using that to help motivate the people that we work with, because the reality is we couldn't do it without them, and everybody's got a part in that job. And so if you can kind of show them how that ties into the end result, I've always found that it's much more effective. I've also found that the project success rate is significantly higher because it's not me suggesting things, right? So oftentimes, how frustrated have you been when you engaged a consultant and they come in and they have this plan and it's going to work. And like step
Mhm.
two, you're like, that is not working. And you know
Yeah.
your people, right? And
Yeah.
so working with them to get that understanding, and really that's also why I make like every plan is custom, is because every business
Mhm.
is custom, what they need is custom, how they work and operate. You can have general structures that yes are the same, but the people are all different, and that's
Yeah.
really the key of it, right?
Well, and you hit the nail on the head there, because we have had experiences with sort of consultants and advisors in the past where the big danger is when they've come in with a one size fits all, and they did exactly what you said. They failed to ask questions. They failed to learn about us, and what it did is we learned the hard way from some of these things, that from the one size fits all and the failures, where we have to focus. But boy, would it have been valuable to have somebody come in that is an expert in an area and just ask a ton of questions. And like you said, the best mindset they can have is just to be curious, ask a ton of questions, and be able to come with an answer that's tailor made for our organization, rather than here's something that, yeah, probably about 1% has success because they're just hope, like I said, they're running the same model for everybody, and it might work for somebody, right? And it's that superpower is asking questions. Like if you're
Mm.
offering advisory services, it's the one thing you can do out of everything that's going to make everything run 1,000 times better, is just ask a ton of questions.
I couldn't agree with that more. I've had so many people say like, how are you confident to go out and like sell your services? And it's, I don't need to know everything. I need to know which questions to ask. And I think the one size fits all, the difference between what I'm doing and what they're doing is it's very, very small, but I think it's the absolute biggest impact. And it's taking that model and tweaking it, right?
Mhm.
So we have our framework, as like with any IT or
Yes.
accounting solution, you have a framework, right? You have this process that you go through.
Mhm.
And as long as you work the process, it's consistent, it's whatever, but you have to know when it applies, right? So think of this. How many clients do you have that complain about emails that they get, that it's just this mass email? Right. So I have a ton of clients that, because I don't do bookkeeping and tax work, their biggest pain point is their accountant. And they're like, I know I'm just getting a mass email. Like, I don't have this type of partnership. Why am I getting this email, or why am I this? And
Mhm.
so I'm not suggesting you can't have a framework. I do believe in them. And I think that they're very, very important. And that's really what a process is.
Mhm.
But it's knowing when to add those frames or when to tick those boxes, right? The
Mhm.
same as with dry run when we were going through that, and I was getting really excited about all of those different capabilities. And then you're like, right, we don't normally show this because we meet them where they're at and we don't want to overwhelm them, but it's available if they want it, right? And so it's knowing which clients will need which service, or how to talk to them in a certain way, right?
Mhm.
Whether they have a banking background and you can just run through acronyms, or whether you're explaining it in a basic business sense so that everybody in the room, right? Because you might have one person that understands it, but you have five people on the panel. And so you
Yeah.
want everybody to have the level of understanding so that they can go and communicate and have an effective conversation. Because so long in business, finance has held the power. And
Mhm.
I so disagree with that, right? So many business owners working with an external financial accountant or tax accountant, and they ask the questions and they're not getting the answers they want,
Mhm.
or they engage with somebody and they end up spending over $100,000 a year in salary, but they don't really understand what they're saying. And
Mhm.
now this person is making all the decisions for their business, and they're trying to have conversations and it's going right over their head, right?
Mhm.
Leveling that playing field so that the other people in the room can bring their skill set that is very valuable. That's why they're at that organization,
Mhm.
and say, if we do this, no, we can't change the product to A, B, and C. We're going to lose, our biggest market or our biggest, so that they can actually bring all of the experts and have a conversation and get the value out of it, instead of just
Mhm.
looking at the finance person and being like, okay, what are we doing?
Yeah. It's you've highlighted a couple things that I wanted to touch on. If you're actually on the other side and you're a business owner and you're like, we need that expertise, we need this insight, we need to help understand what to prioritize, what directions to take. We need to hire a fractional CFO, let's say. There's a couple of things that I think you highlighted that will help them understand if it's the right person. And number one is, do they come in and ask questions and find out about your business? And number two, when they talk to you, can you understand what they're saying? Do they speak in just plain, clear language, or are they talking in jargon? A couple of real key points that I think are really, really essential.
I really appreciate that. One of the ones that I've always had at the top is, do you like them? Because here's the thing, so many clients, and I get it's your finances. I have heard more about people's lives than I care to before I ever hear about their finances, but that's how close they hold them to their chest. And so you have to be able to have a rapport and to trust them, right? And it's just imperative. So, and have somebody that's willing to work with you and understand that, right? And there's certain things that you just need to be able to understand. If there's a change in your personal life and your business needs to fund it, you should feel comfortable talking to that money person about it. And my biggest thing is, if you're not comfortable, you either need to get comfortable or find somebody that you can be, because you're doing a disservice to yourself and really not getting the level of expertise that you could. And it's a personality thing. And I mean, I understand that. And that's one of the reasons I work so hard to engage in the community, whether it's in my local area of CPAs in Alberta and spreading the word there, or working with others and training them as CFOs, because whether it's me or not me, I really do want businesses to work with people. And so just finding that right personality fit that you can pick them up and pick up the phone and say, hey, this is what's going on. What do you think? And respect their decision. But furthermore, that CFO is going to suggest things that you want to do and respect. So it's my job to come up with ideas. An example is I came up with this alternative revenue source for a tradesperson that I work with. And it's, do you want to go in and put all the EVs into this type of community? And they went, no, I'm not really into residential. And I'm like, okay, cool. And we moved on. They actually called me way more than they usually would. I normally hear about once a day from them. I heard 8 times in one day. 2 days later, they called me back and they were like, okay, I straight up have to ask, like, why haven't you brought this up again? And I'm like, you said no. And they were like, right, but it's a good revenue idea. And I'm like, right, but it doesn't fit in with your values or your wants. So regardless of the idea level, it doesn't matter. It doesn't fit. And they were like, wow, I've never had that. I really was expecting you to change my mind. And I'm like, not my job. Right? Let's just find another one. And so being able that it's really a partnership and a communication back and forth, I think is also so important.
We see, because we talk with business owners all the time, we talk with finance pros all the time. And it's funny that how often we kind of end up feeling like we're fitting like in the middle and we're in between the two, right? And there's a couple of earmarks that I see that are always red flags for me, for a business owner and their finance pro. One of them, it's the biggest one, is we've had people come to us in like kind of our support team, and they'll say like, oh, hey, can I show you something? Can I talk with you about something? We're expecting them to ask about like a tech thing in dry run. And then they come in and they start saying something like, I think I'm going to run out of money in such days, or they're talking about their finances with us. And we always say, well, okay, go and talk with your accountant about this. And it's amazing how many times we hear, I don't want to talk. I don't want to tell my accountant that. They're telling the software support team something they don't want to talk to their accountant about.
Right.
That is a real problem. There's some breakdown in the lack of trust there, but they respect them almost too much. The other place where we see some real issues is, I can't see that information because I can't get to my accounting file because they won't move me into the cloud. Like they're on desktop and they're the only ones with a copy, and they give me stuff like once a quarter or once a month. And it's always, a month after the fact. You can't work with data when it's that late, when it's coming in that late.
Yes and no. Data coming in late is better than no data at all. However, you're right. In today's business world, a month behind is no good. I am a CPA, CGA, and so I only want to support my fellow accountants. First, something just to clarify, accountant is not a protectant term. Anybody can call themselves an accountant. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have a designation. And some of the things that I get really frustrated from my business owners are their accountants or their bookkeepers. And so I coach them through, you should always own your data. You are the business owner. You are in charge of the data. It doesn't matter that it's in their system or their license. It is yours. I question anybody on desktop anymore because I know support is ending in 3 years, and I'm terrified for them. It's a project to flip it over. But here's the thing. I think it all comes down to having the relationship with your accountant and being able to talk to them. I get why they don't want to talk to them. I don't like talking to them about my year end. I don't understand what they're saying half the time. I run my business the same way that I help other clients because it helps me understand my cash flow and the decision making. What they file for taxes, I make sure to ask the questions so that I have an understanding and I'm paying the right tax. But I really am trusting them and I know how to do the calculations, right? So I can't imagine the level of uncertainty and just trust that business owners that don't have a designation have. But not wanting to talk to them often comes from the frustration of them asking the questions, and the accountant doesn't have the communication skills to be able to come back to them and meet them where they're at, right? So what I mean by that is in Canada, there's now CPAs. We're under one designation, whereas previously we used to have a CA, which focused on audit, mostly for the government. We had a CGA that did your books and year end and tax filings. And then your CMA was the one that helped you run your business. And there's very different skill sets and trainings. I use tax professionals and experts. If my clients ask me questions about tax, let's get on with our tax expert because I know enough to be dangerous, but not enough that we want to be having me in that. And so I think the accountants really do want to help their clients and they're giving them what they ask for, but they're giving them in a way that they know how to do it. So for example, I have a client that I met with last week and we sat down and we did a budget. And we sat down for 2 hours and did it together. And they were like, oh my gosh, I've been asking my accountant for years for this and blah, 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 blah. And like, I actually get it now. And you're so, and I'm like, no, it's just a different skill set. So the accountant is giving them a budget as the way that they're typically seeing it. Whereas the budget that I created with my client was, here's base you have to have. So this is everything that you guys have committed to, whether it's a mortgage or a loan, right? Our fixed expenses in accounting, or your gym membership that is key to your mental health. I've included that, right? And so all I did was gave them 4 buckets: house, kids, food, discretionary, and a base budget. And here's what you can spend each week. And, your mortgage comes out in this one and this one. And we don't want to be borrowing from next week. We want to take it from last week. And so just explain it in a way that makes sense. And we're going to run that through for a couple of months. They have enough information. Whereas I think an accountant gets so excited that their client is asking for the information that they give them everything. And the client's going, oh my God, I can't, I don't know what to do, right? And so really just meeting them where they're at. Here's what you're currently spending in these buckets. Here's what you need to make every month to make that continue to happen. And then they're like, well, that seems really high. I'm like, right, because we were living on lines of credit before, because we're funding the business, right? So flipping that around and sitting with them in a way that is comfortable, that is no shame, right? Like, we're not going to point fingers. Cool. This is where you're at. Awesome. Where do you want to go? How can we support you getting there? And bringing it to a level that they understand and can action, right? And so just working with that. And so I think the accountants really, really want to, but they're either not able to because of the training they have, or they don't really understand what the client needs. And again, this comes back to being able to ask the questions.
Yeah, and I think there's some accountants and some people out there that actually could make a really terrific transition to being a fractional CFO because they have those qualities. And you know what? They're probably already kind of half doing it. It's like, yeah, I talk to my clients, I enjoy it, I'm doing this. And you know what? If you're doing that already, you're likely in the minority, but a really good fit for this.
100%.
And if you're not, then maybe don't go down that path, right?
Well, but the thing is that I think it's important to recognize that, right? Like, not everybody needs to do everything, but building up your network so that you can support your clients. And whether you are a accountant, a CPA or not, you can still actually be offering that advice if you have the background. Like, I've actually met CFOs that don't have an accounting background. They came up through business or sales, and they were really great at connecting those dots and being able to have those conversations. The accountants that I see that make really great transitions are the ones that have started moving their clients from, we don't want to talk to you once a year. We want to be talking to you minimum quarterly. We'd ideally love to be talking to you every month and get an idea of what you're planning next month and last month. And they're doing it from the perspective of, oh my gosh, year end is crazy because we're talking to them about things that happened 11, 12 months ago and they don't remember versus doing it every month. And that's really, I meet with my clients every month. And because I have the overview of what we're going to have to do at year end, and I'm probably sitting in on that meeting and I don't want to have to do a lot, I'm pulling the stuff or making sure that they're talking to their accountant when they're doing big things. Hey, I know you bought that truck or you're leasing that thing. Make sure not only are you flagging it for the books and the payment, but that it goes in an asset acquired list for the year end. Right? Those kinds of things, that it's those little tweaks, really, because business owners know a lot of these things, right? They just don't know everything and they don't know what they don't know. So being able to develop the rapport and make it so either the support is there or the guidance is there so that they're doing it as they can. And a lot of them are loving it and they're like, oh my gosh. And then they're coming back and like, okay, I did this for this and I saved it like this. Do I have to do the same thing? And it's like, yeah, totally.
Yep.
Right. And here's where we're going to use that information.
Yeah. And the opportunity and the market for offering these types of services is absolutely enormous because there's millions upon millions of businesses out there, and the vast majority need this type of expertise, need this kind of help, and the systems and processes and the technology is there today to make it possible to be able to serve a lot more clients. It doesn't have to be a 40-hour-a-week job. You can help multiple clients, multiple people, and some of them are going to be a small engagement and you're just going to be able to lift them a little bit, and others can be much larger engagements. But business owners, especially now, it's been a tough 4 or 5 years here, need that help. And so I just want to sort of bring this to kind of a close on a couple of things. Like, what are some of the key points on two sides? First of all, a couple of key points. If you're a CPA or maybe not CPA, but you believe you're a great fit for this, how do you sort of take that next step in helping your clients? And if you're a business, how do you recognize that someone is going to be a good fit to help you?
Wow. Oh, that first one I think I'm going to start with the business side because it's a little
Sure.
bit easier, in my opinion. So I think, businesses recognizing, being willing to ask questions and sit down for a consult with somebody. I know most people or businesses that offer these types of services would rather sit down and see if it's a good fit before they're going to charge anything. So I would highly recommend that businesses take advantage of that. You know, definitely you're going to want to make sure that they have some expertise in the area, whether it is from prior experience in industry working, their CV, if you will, or whether it's actual formal education. Um, either either is relevant. I actually do think that the experience over the education, if you're going to say that they only have one, I would go for the experience, because books are great, but that's not how real life always works. And so having the ability to communicate with them, wanting to ask questions, getting an understanding of your business. I wouldn't necessarily suggest that they have to have worked in your industry, because somebody with experience can understand the different industry pulls, numbers are
Hmm.
numbers kind of thing. But really about, do you feel comfortable with them? Do you want to talk to them? Do you want to pick up the phone? And engage with them. Those are some of the criterias. Are they willing to work with you? Can you try it out? Um, Unlike hiring a full-time employee, you typically with a fractional are going to have like a 3-month learning period where you can ramp up and ramp down. And in that way, I think if you're looking at hiring a full-time CFO, even going for a fractional to set the stage so that you can really get an idea of what you need so that you can really identify the core skill set of your full time could be an approach. You can look at businesses that specify in it. There's a bunch all over Canada and the US now. Or you can actually reach out to organizations like CPA. I know that all of the CPAs, through all the provinces, have their own job posting boards. So businesses can actually post that they're looking for this kind of thing. And in that way, it kind of takes it down from an Indeed posting because you're only going to be getting certain people looking at it.
Hmm.
Um, with regards to those that are looking to offer the services, um, I think if you're already an accountant and you have a book of business and you're engaging with your account, like with your clients on a regular basis, and you really want to get to know them and help them over the long term. So this means planning for 3 and 5 years instead of just the yearly tax. I definitely think taking a couple of courses with regards to leadership and communication to see if this is something you want to do, because you are transitioning from less technical into more soft skills.
Hmm.
And so making sure that you have the soft skills to support the delivery of the technical material, I think is probably the biggest aspect. And
Hmm.
so that being the case, that would be true for the business then. Can they explain things in a way that you understand? Are they willing to try to explain it in more than a couple of ways?
Hmm.
Um, and it really is a partnership, either side that you're on. And so, as the CPA, recognizing my role isn't to tell you how to code and how to this and how to that anymore. My role is to understand where we're going in the business and what you're wanting to do, not only in the next month, 3, 6, 9 months, but where you want to be in 3 and 5 years. Why
Hmm.
did you start the business? Because all of that is going to influence what decisions we make, what models we build, how we present things to you,
Hmm.
what goals or targets end up being more important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, frankly, this has been super helpful, Amanda. I kind of want to bring us to a bit of a close here and ask you, how do people find you, whether they want to talk with you about potentially being their fractional CFO, or if they're a finance pro and they just want to, have a little conversation, a little chat with you and share notes. How should people track you down?
I love meeting new people, whether it's business or finance. So I can be found on LinkedIn. I am the only me. Mallmes is very easy to find. And my LinkedIn is just my name with CGA, CPA on it. So I'll make sure that you have that it can go in the notes of the podcast. Or mallmesconsulting.com. My website has a book now. So you can either send me a note or you can ask to sit down for a virtual coffee, because it is really about sharing ideas and notes and perspectives. And I'd love to chat with anybody else that's doing this and see if they have tips or tricks or stories to share, because it really, for me, is how do we build and support businesses? How do we keep them in success? And small business is defined as under 1 billion, but I really am focusing on that 1 to 99 and keeping them in business and helping them grow and thrive.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I really encourage you guys to reach out to Amanda, chat with her, learn more about her, especially from the 1 to 99. Perfect fit. And I'm sure there's millions of businesses out there that could massively benefit from talking with you. And also I want to mention, if you're looking for a tool to figure out where you're headed in your business, to model scenarios, understand where you're headed with your cash flow, manage that cash flow, come and talk with us at dryrun.com. We'd love to show you what we got and see if we can help you out.